You're listening to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the hottest new podcast network and YouTube channel in the UK, featuring original series, top guests, expert analysts, and more. Check out facebook.com/AceCast Nation for news on latest guests and shows. Watch every show in full at youtube.com/ACE Podcast Nation.
Yes, lads, UFC Fighter Jack Show here. You can catch me on the latest episode of A.C.E Podcast Nation. Make sure to give them a subscribe on YouTube. It's youtube.com/A.C.E Podcast Nation, and looking forward to get back on there soon.
Defending champion, welcome, Danny Batten.
Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Danny Batten Fight Show. This is episode number 70, and tonight we're going to be talking the latest MMA news and of course speaking to our great guest, which I'm really excited to. I've been building up for this one for a few weeks. It's been in the books since almost Christmas, pretty much, just after Christmas. And no UFC last night, but we'll be talking Bellator 255, which will be a nice change of pace as well. Danny has watched all the fights, ready to give his world-class analysis. But as usual, you can get this show video format, youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. The audio format is at all the usual places. And of course, Ace Podcast Nation features many other great shows and series featuring top guests, expert analysts, and more. So do give us a follow on social media. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. Click the bell for notification. I think we're coming up towards 3,000 followers on YouTube, which is pretty good. After we struggled to 1,000, it was very demoralizing sometimes, but we've been flying since Christmas, maybe just before. So that's a very nice. Thank you everyone for their support, of course, as ever. But we're always looking to grow further, especially the social media pages. So do give us a subscribe or a follow. And you can follow the Danny Batten Show if you want to keep it MMA and boxing at Danny Batten FS on Twitter and Instagram. And so joining me, as ever, the return of the legend, the ex-Cage Warriors champion, Mr. Danny Batten is back from the US of A. Welcome back, buddy. How are you? How was your trip?
Yeah, you guys. Well, the trip was enjoyable. Mostly didn't get the result we wanted.
Mate, don't get me started. Don't get me started on those judges.
Yeah, but it wasn't a perfect performance either. There were things that I wanted to go down different, but it wasn't the case. But we can talk about that in a little bit more detail as we go through. But yeah, I mean, overall, the trip was a different experience from my two Dubai trips. I do slightly prefer Dubai. I like going down to the beach and stuff like that. It has a little bit more to do, I suppose. We were stuck in a residence inn, so I occupied my time by cooking a lot, which I also enjoy to do. So and drank a lot as well.
No surprise.
What are you to do?
No surprise there at all. But I thought for Modestas, I was really happy to see that I felt like he'd addressed a couple of the issues that he'd had in the Jimmy Crute fight. From just watching from the outside, you could see that he had addressed certain things. He sort of paced himself a bit more. He was keeping the distance, and he took a couple of big shots. Showed he's got a hell of a chin. But overall, I thought he won the fight. I got to be honest, and I even have kind of asked other people to see maybe if I was just a bit biased or whatever. But even on social media afterwards, you could see that the overall swell of opinion was that Modestas had won that fight, and it's unfortunate because obviously it means two losses in a row. But there we go. We'll talk about that a bit later, a bit more. But joining us, I'm delighted to welcome, as I said, it's been in the books for a while, professional MMA fighter, ex-Cage Warriors, ex-UFC welterweight, Rhys Skeletor Mckee. Welcome, buddy. How are you?
Yes,
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you very much for having me on, and it'll be a pleasure to talk.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it. Obviously, spoke to you sort of just before Christmas, and we got back in contact after Christmas, and got it in the books. Been waiting for a while, really, because of there was like a couple of weeks of various things. Danny was away and stuff, but yeah, looking forward to chatting. Before we're gonna have a little chat about the news in a minute. There's a few little stories I want to address and talk to you guys about, get your opinions. But before we do talk about that, I think the first thing we should address is ex-UFC fighter Rhys McKEee. You had a short little stint there. We talked obviously when you went out and fought Chimaev at Fight Island. Me and Danny spoke about that at the time. But probably over a few weeks, we kind of kept coming up. We felt, for lack of a better term, or I felt, I wouldn't speak for Danny, like they stitched you up a little bit. They brought you in on short notice. Chimaev, obviously, we've seen him go and take out a string of other fighters along the way. Looked like he was going to be set for a big fight against Leon Edwards, and obviously we all know what happened there. But sort of talk us through what's happened. Obviously, you went in on short notice, you signed.
Yeah.
Go from there.
Yeah, so obviously I got the Chimaev fight, and I think it was 6 days notice. At the time, like I really didn't know who Chimaev was, and that got a lot of press because like people were thinking I was being ignorant to what. But I'm not a big I don't watch UFC. I'm not a big fight fan. Despite, but
that's quite good.
So I didn't know who he was. So obviously the fight went how it did, and then for me it was weird because it was like it was good that I signed for the UFC, the pinnacle, all the good stuff, and then to go in 6 days, get a loss, and then it was all kind of weird. And before you know it, November came again, and I had a good fight with another great fighter in Morano, and unfortunately lost that fight and was given the marching papers. And you said the word stitched up, and I didn't really feel that at the time until I got cut. Then I feel now looking back, it's maybe I would use the word stitch up with it.
Yeah, I think it felt like it was a little bit unfair, just like the way they went about it. Like any other fighter, when they sign you to the UFC contract, they build you up gradually. They give you a couple of fights, which are always going to be tough fights in the UFC, but they build you up. They give you a fight or two, which realistically you've got a good chance of winning, and then maybe they'll chuck you in with that sort of tougher opponent. They do look after their fighters, particularly the European ones. When they bring them in, you've only got to look at Jack Shaw, even Modestus. They gave him a couple of tricky fights, but fights that he was more than capable of winning, and he as shown. And then obviously he took the Jimmy Crute fight. That was, as Danny has said before, that was his choice, and something which Danny. What would you say, Danny? Maybe didn't want him to take it, or wanted him to wait?
No, as far as I understood it, he had other options were much easier. The way I see your first contract, I don't know what your situation was, Rhys, but Modestus is in a 4-fight contract for his first contract. To me, you try to take the easiest fights you can, or you get offered. If you've got options, you take the easiest ones first. Because it's all about trying to consolidate your results to be able to therefore play for bigger money on your second contract that can, really change your life. You might be able to, pay up for a house or something along those lines and really consolidate something in your life, no matter what happens thereafter. But I felt like taking a risk on a fight. He's just so highly touted, this Crute. I just didn't get that thing. But this is the thing with fighters. Look, fighters have strong minds, they have strong opinions, and they initially do what they do. As a coach, I'm not their parent. I don't have no ruling over them. I'm nothing more than advisor. I don't even like the word term coach or professor, or you get all these different titles, sensei or what have you. I don't do any of that. I'm nothing more than a student myself that's just got a bit more experience, and I share that experience. And you become an advisor, and I advised strongly against it. I didn't like the idea, but it happened.
And Dan, on Rhys, do you feel like, obviously I used the term stitched up, and Rhys said, with hindsight, he feels a bit like maybe that was the case. I feel like they could have treated him very differently.
Absolutely. Look, no one wanted to step in and fight Chimov. No one wanted to. Suddenly, Rhys McKEee steps up on extreme short notice. We're not talking like a couple of weeks out, between 6 days. And, that's a hell of a feat to stand up to. So the least they could have done was given a couple of feeder fights. Okay, that other one was quite a close fight, a really entertaining fight that you had against Moreno. They should have at least give you another couple of shots in there to express your game. You're a young lad. You're 25, right?
25, yeah.
Yeah, still very, very young. And they could have developed you in the UFC. I've seen them do it with other fighters where they slowly introduce them, and if they stepped in short notice and stepped up, they get a couple of feeder fights thereafter. But I just think
the other thing, mate, as well, to add to that as well, guys, is like if Rhys hadn't stepped in on 6 days' notice, Chimaev hasn't got a fight. The UFC have to drop the fight. So he's kind of done them a favor. I know you get paid for it, etc., etc. But because you were willing to take a fight on 6 days' notice, they were still able to have that fight at Fight Island at a time where you've got lockdowns and things where things are a bit tricky. Many fighters won't take a fight on short notice. So once you take that fight, not saying you did them a favor, but you certainly helped them out a bit. So I did feel maybe they could have looked after you a bit more in return.
Go on.
You good? Go ahead. You can go.
I was just going to say, it's not even about just getting Chimaev and helping Chimaev out. It helped the UFC out. Chimaev is a massive draw. Everyone's curious to see him every time he steps in the cage. He creates a lot of attention. You helped the whole promotion out with that particular show. Because without Chimaev in it, it was suddenly dulled down somewhat. Everyone wants to see Chimaev. It was just going through that massive attention,
hype train, mate.
I didn't like it the way it went down. The UFC are great. They do many, many good things, but I do think sometimes they're really so brutal on their decision making on these young guys' careers, yours and others, that sometimes it keeps me scratching my head.
And for me, I didn't go to Fight Island to lose or just to get my contract. I went there to win the fight, but then after I lost, I kind of thought, you know what, they might throw that one in the book. I'm not saying not count that as a loss, but look at the reasons to why I maybe lost. The Moreno fight, I should have won. That's the most disappointing loss of my career because I just fought I fought like the amateur version of myself. And so, I have no problem taking that loss. But, for me, if they gave me one more fight and I lost, I would have left the UFC myself. But I think we definitely parted ways too short. And as you said, they are absolutely cutthroat. And, especially at the minute, it's different at the minute too.
With them, obviously, I'm interested to see your take. They're fully behind the hype train that is Chimaev. That's clear to see the way they've pushed. There's not many fighters over the history of the UFC who've been hyped and pushed the way that they've pushed him. The fact that he was going to get Leon Edwards, I think, shows that because Chimaev's not even in the rankings. Which again, so for him to be getting that Leon Edwards fight, I think was massive. Obviously, that fight didn't happen, but what's he like to go up against? Is he beatable? Is he as good as everybody seems to think?
Yeah, I'll not be the guy to sit in your podcast and give excuses, but I came in very much so we're in a UK lockdown. At that stage I hadn't wrestled in 6, 7, 8 weeks. To the point where even after my feet were all ripped up because I haven't been grappling in so long. And Danny, you know what I mean by that. Anytime I was on the mat, my skin was just ripping. I was so unconditioned. And I can't really give a true meaning of how good he is. But for me, he didn't feel unbeatable by any means. I've grappled and wrestled better guys, and I know I didn't do too much, but his control didn't feel phenomenal. He was definitely ahead of everything I'd done, but I think that was more a muscle memory thing than different skill level. When Moreno got me down in that fight, that was he was much stronger than Chimaev ever was. That's for sure.
Interesting. Yeah. So would you say that the Chimaev fight wasn't the toughest fight of your career, then you'd say?
Yeah, I'd be happy enough to say that. Like again,
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. It's just
no.
even just by what you just said there, like it sounds like.
I've been open about it before though. Like, do I think Leon Edwards, for example, would have smashed Chimaev? Absolutely. Like, you know, I trained with Norman Park since I was 15. Like, and for me, like his grappling and wrestling is like beyond anything I've ever felt from Chimaev.
Mm. Yeah, you mentioned Leon Edwards. I think he got a hit, and you talk about UFC maybe disrespecting their fighters, Danny. Sometimes we've talked at length about the disrespect that's been shown to Leon Edwards on the whole by some parts of the media, by the UFC. Obviously, his fight did not go as planned in terms of result, but before the unfortunate eye-poking disqualification, he looked sharp and he looked good. And he takes me to the first bit of news I want to talk about. He is fighting Nate Diaz, in a 5-round co-main event. I believe it's April, but it's not for the title or not for a title. Danny, how do you feel about that fight? Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards.
I hope it's like a financial gift for him in terms of getting paid decent money to fight someone like Diaz. You know, I think that's what that one's all about, to be honest. But if anyone deserves a title shot, to me, it's Leon. He's been waiting in the wings. What do they expect this guy to do? I don't know. I think they want to see him fly with a cape on or something. I don't know. To me, he's the hottest prospect in that division right now. And to me, he's number 2, just yet to prove he's number 1. But I have a feeling in my bones he's the best guy in that division right now. I think he's the number 1 in the world. I just think he's just got to have the opportunities to step in there, to take that opportunity and then prove to everyone that is the case. He impresses me every time he steps in there. His fight IQ seems to be on point. He's sharp. He makes good decisions. He doesn't ever look flustered. I mean, that Blau is one hell of a prospect in his own right, and such a pressure fighter with great cardio. He was shutting him down. He was going in with his strikes at the right time, clinching up at the right time. Everything he was doing was really, really well. It's just a very, very unfortunate eye poke. It wasn't even an eye poke where he was defending anything. He was throwing a kick and he put his arm out to throw the kick. It's just extremely unfortunate. And, really gutted. It just seems to be, Leon Edwards seems to be surrounded by, this shadow of misfortune all the time.
Yeah, well, I've got one problem with this Nate Diaz. Well, 2 technically, because I feel like Leon Edwards should be in a title fight. But my problem with the Nate Diaz fight specifically is, of all the fighters in the UFC, how can I put this? Like, the chances of Nate Diaz pulling out or being pulled out for a reason, I feel, is quite high, because this happens so many times for whatever reason. And like you say, Leon Edwards almost has this streak of being a bit unfortunate with fights being called off or not being able to get anyone to fight him. And I worry that this is going to get called off at, like a week before, and Leon Edwards will be stuck without a fight again. Whereas, so Rhys, I mean, what do you feel about what I just said? And also, how do you see that fight going between Diaz and Edwards?
Yeah, I think you're bang on, especially with unfortunate for Leon Edwards, what he's kind of, he's always weird circumstances, and why has he not got the title shot? There's just a kind of like this cloud over his career, which is so unfortunate, because as you said, like, he is the absolute man. He's a real beast. If the fight does go ahead, I can't see anything other than Leon Edwards running through him. I think I really sat up and started to notice Leon Edwards when he ran through Gunnar Nelson the way he did. Like, if anybody's ever heard anybody talk about Gunnar Nelson, it's how good he is. And the fact that Leon Edwards just was able to shut him down to a ridiculous level it just shows you how good he is. It's scary.
Do you think, Danny, do you think Leon Edwards could stop Nate Diaz? Leon Edwards is a heavy, heavy favourite, by the way, in the opening odds. Like, Nate Diaz has proven, though, he can take a punch. And I mean, I know he had the size advantage over McGregor, but McGregor never stopped him, and McGregor has got that stopping power, even though it was, a bit technically fighting a weight up. Like, can Leon Edwards stop Nate Diaz, or do you see it going like a 5-round? You know, and I think Leon Edwards will win, even if it goes to 5 rounds. But how do you see the actual fight going?
I think the only possible way Nate Diaz can win the fight really is on cardio, if Leon Edwards, for whatever means, has a difficult weight cut, or he was unable to train efficiently for the fight.
Yeah.
Seeing that he's never really shown that he gets particularly gassed himself, and he makes good decisions at a good pace. He just gets so many things in order. I can't see anything like that happening. If anyone's going to be winning and stopping this fight, it's going to be Leon. I think Leon's got the capabilities to knock Nate out. Nate's got mileage on his clock now, and I love Nate to bits. I love the way he fights. He's there to fight and throw down. He's not scared to grapple with scary grapplers. He's not scared to throw down with scary strikers. And he seems to have no respect for wrestlers whatsoever. He doesn't seem to defend the takedowns too greatly, but he's comfortable anywhere it goes. And he will fight to the end. I have no doubts about that. But in my honest opinion, without sounding disrespectful, Nate is not worthy to be in there with Leon, in my personal opinion. Leon deserves the top world-class competitors to fight against. And even that being said, I think always his next fight should have been that title shot. Yes. But like I say, I just think there's something that's been worked with the UFC to give him a bit of a pay event in regards to Nate. There's a lot more harder fights out there for him than Nate Diaz, to be honest.
I think Nate Diaz is the money fight in some ways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Nate's no doubt going to make a lot of money from it. It's going to create a big draw for the UFC, so they'll be making their money out of it, and I hope it's lined in the pockets of Leon, and this will sit him a little sweet to wait in the wings a little bit longer to get his answer. I suppose it'll be Usman, yeah.
And by the way, like, if Leon Edwards was to spark him out in a round, that's one hell of a thing on your resume, isn't it, to stop Nate Diaz in a round or 2 rounds or whatever. Danny, just quickly, what do you think of the point I made in regards to Nate Diaz not having the reputation, but he's had quite a few fights called off and pullouts and various different issues around fighting, and with Leon Edwards' unfortunate luck in the UFC. Is that a worry?
I try not to think about it. It is. Just something I just don't want to say, because I don't want to encourage anything to happen, even though I'm not really of that mind in terms of believing in things like luck and bad luck and so on and so forth. Yeah, of course,
but it's not conspiracy theory. Nate Diaz has had issues.
I have no doubt it's on everyone's mind. It's at the back of everyone's mind. There's no doubt about it. But I hope it does go ahead. And I love both fighters to bits for the sake of Leon's career and for what I wish and hope for him. I just want to see the UK guy pick up that title. Let's get him running through Nate, and then let's watch him take on Usman and knock him the hell out. And let's get a change of hands on the belt.
What I would like to think, mate, is that they've got a backup of some sort in case there's any issue with that fight. So if Nate Diaz does pull out for whatever reason, they've got a backup in place to just slide in there nicely, even if it's Rhys McKEee. Yeah, they'll call Rhys on 2 days' notice.
That'd be a turn of events if I stepped in again. I would have liked to seen them Edwards and Masvidal, if anything, and Kamaru to wait a bit longer. He's the champ. Why not let him wait? And Masvidal and Edwards have their history, so
well, that fight should have been done a while ago, shouldn't it, Rhys?
Yeah, for sure. Should have
that would be a banger as well. That would be a banger. Stylistically, that would be a banger.
And you know what? Actually, out of all the fights that Leon could potentially have, whether it's Usman, Diaz, I actually think Masvidal would give him the most trouble out of the 3 of them, because I think Leon Edwards goes through Usman. I think Leon Edwards goes through Nate Diaz. He goes through Gilbert Burns. He goes through, I can't think of any off the top of my head. I think he would absolutely annihilate Chimaev. Like, to me, Masvidal is the biggest challenge for him. So to have that as a number 1 contenders fight seems like the right way to go.
The division's scary.
Mental, isn't it?
It's deep. Yeah, that's deep.
So moving on to the next story I wanted to talk about, Danny, friend of the show, and mine, Paddy the Baddie Pimblett, in the worst kept secret ever, gone to the UFC. He told us outright, didn't he, before his fight when he was on the show? He said, if I win and I win well, I'm going to the UFC. It was no, maybe we'll see what happens. He outright said that, and it was true. I don't think it's a massive surprise. Looks like they're going to push him though, because UFC plastered him everywhere.
Yeah, it's exciting. He's been on the Cage Warrior scene for such a long time, really has been. But he was in the sport for such a young age. He's still probably not even reached his peak physically yet. So he'll be doing that in the UFCs. And I think it's all about timing. I think it's great timing. As long as we see the continuing improvements in his striking, his grappling is extremely good, as we've seen before. And I think we're just going to see great things. And I think they're going to promote him. I think hopefully they'll look after him a little bit and give him some kind introduction to UFCs. And let's watch this young kid's career unfold. I think he's going to be great on the mic. He's a little bit McGregor-esque in his, brutal approach. I mean, look, he don't talk no bullshit. He just says things how they really are to him. He don't dress nothing up. He says it how he sees it, and he sees himself as an unstoppable force. And he convinces me that he believes it. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to take it all the way, but I just think that attitude could definitely put you in the mix to taking it all the way to the top. You've got to have belief in yourself, and he certainly has a lot of that. Yeah,
for me, he had to go to the UFC because there's no lightweight outside of the UFC which I think can touch him, because his all-round game is so good. Like, he can do everything so well. Like, whenever I've spoken to Paddy, and particularly in the last sort of 6 months or so, like, he has said he's not interested in like those sort of warm-up fights. He wants to go straight in and fight the ranked fighters and show that he is that good. So it'll be interesting which way they go. Will they give him one fight first, and then if he steams through it, give him what he wants? Or will, as part of the negotiations, as he said, I don't want to mess about. I want to go straight in. It's going to be fascinating to watch. I expect him to be fighting pretty soon. I got to be honest, because that fight against David Martinez was over before it was even started. So he's he's going to be still in camp. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't go straight into some sort of fight. Rhys, I'm assuming you weren't surprised when Paddy went to the UFC, but how do you think he will do in the UFC? Is he as good as we think?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been lucky enough to train with Paddy once, and obviously he's next gen Liverpool and we're next gen Northern Ireland. So we have a good relationship and stuff. And I messaged him and congratulate him. I think, like as Danny said, Paddy's grind is so high level. I can't see him not doing well in the UFC, and I believe he's going in at 145. I believe he's signed at 145. So I think he'll do fantastic. They'll love him on the mic. It just depends. I think he'll, as you said, he'll be straight into the firing line and some big fights.
145. So
yeah, that's what I think. I think he knows that's where it's going to be at as well.
That is.
He did say he did say he wasn't worried about doing the lightweight. I think he was going to get some.
Sorry, did you say one? Did you say 135 or 145?
Oh, 145.
Yeah, so lightweight.
He said he was going to seek some advice on whether it was viable for him. He was going to get his body checked
for like a DEXA scanner and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Because obviously, he in Cage Warriors, when he was coming through as a teen, early 20s, he was the featherweight champion, and he did look unstoppable then. And he was unbeaten for a long time at featherweight, and which was when the McGregor comparisons started. Obviously, as he got older and filled out a bit more, he moved up to the lightweight. Like, for me, I think lightweight's probably better for him. You guys would know better than me. Like, featherweight seems like quite a big cut for where he is. And like you mentioned earlier, Danny, with Leon Edwards, like a bad weight cut can be the difference between, winning a fight and losing a fight.
Over a 5-rounder, yeah, with someone like Nate. Nate will just pour onto you. It's like a leak. If you don't address the leak, it'll start to turn to a pour, and it'll get worse and worse. Before you know it, you've got a waterfall of techniques coming at you. This guy punches in bunches. He does all these triathlons, out of any fight plan. This guy is obviously incredibly well kept physically, even though not the strongest dude I wouldn't have thought at any given weight. Nate would never claim to be the strongest guy, but he is someone that if you allow him to run away with the pace, he will.
Yeah. If you were Paddy's coach advisor, would you be looking at featherweight or lightweight?
Again, I would. He seems that he's got a much more mature head on his shoulders. That's something that really impressed me. Although he's got this brash personality, it was done in a classy, mature way this time around. Or I think sometimes when we've heard him in the past, we'd see him as a cocky kid. But this guy's developed into a young man. He seems to have things, in order in terms of he's going to seek advice, to try and get his body tested to see what's viable for him, and he'll choose that decision through that result, I suppose you would say.
Yeah.
So this guy is going to seek advice in the right ways, and that's exactly how you should be doing things. I think he's going to be woefully effective, whichever division he chooses to do, but it's going to be down on that.
Interesting. I like it. We had a question sent in, so I'm going to put it to Rhys first. Gaz said, with Paddy Pimblett signing for lightweight, do we ever get the UK/Ireland dream fight of Conor McGregor versus Paddy the Baddy Pimblett before Conor McGregor retires? Rhys, do we ever see that fight, do you think?
Never see that fight. Never.
I think by the time Paddy gets to that level, Conor will probably be gone.
Yeah. But I think I don't even understand why Conor's fighting Dustin again, if I'm being honest. I think
same.
Much more of a risk.
I think that's. Do you think that's a pride thing, Rhys, that he didn't? He lost that fight and he feels like he needs to redeem himself?
I think there's ego there, and I'm a big McGregor fan, but I think there's a lot of ego, and ego will get any man hurt. So I just don't know. I think Dustin has more tools that he hasn't even used yet, where McGregor doesn't. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I can understand that. What about you, Danny? Do you think we ever see Pimblett McGregor ever?
I love
those characters. Just miss it.
I want to see it just for the build-up. Can you imagine these two going at it on the mic?
Wouldn't it?
It'd be like one of those rap fights. I think they'll both be great on the mic, facing up to each other. If I could see that, that'd be awesome. Not only would the fight itself be incredibly good, I just think, like I say, the build-up would just be phenomenal between them. It'd be both comical, real, violent, if you will. I don't know, but I think it would create a lot of attention. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I think for me, the only way it could happen is if Paddy was to go in there and go on like a very quick tear through the lightweight division. Like, I'm talking if they were to give him like someone just outside the rankings, he beats them, and then he wins 3-4 fights against ranked fighters in quick succession and looks dominant. That's the only way I could ever see it happening. And then they do a UFC London fight, because obviously McGregor, I think, is ranked 6 or 7 in the lightweight division. So if he, that's the only way I could see it is so McGregor's 6th. So like you're talking Paddy the Baddy Pimblett would have to make, he'd have to beat a few ranked fighters very quickly, I think, is the only way you could see it. Love to see it, though. Love to see it. Okay. Next I want to talk about is Brett Johns announced his Bellator debut. Danny, obviously we've had Brett on a few times. We've been itching for this debut from him, because it was a decision which we've talked about a lot. We talked to him about it as well, him leaving the UFC and not re-signing and deciding that going to Bellator was the way for him. Obviously, there was some surprise within, the MMA world and stuff like that. Are you looking forward to seeing Brett make his debut?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think he's going to be very, very successful over there. And there's a couple of good people in the division, but there's many, many that he'll display his full repertoire of attacks. And I think he's going to run through a fair few of them. And I think he'll be getting an opportunity very, very quickly in his career in Bellator.
Yeah, I'm not massively familiar with his bantamweight opponent. Is Mateus Matos, who's got a record of 12-2-1. Do you know anything about him, Ed?
Not a great deal, to be honest. But Bellator have got that pull that as soon as you start sort of pushing out of the main 10 rankings, they're kind of a bit of an unknown oddity unless you sort of like specifically research them. I am going to research his opponent a little bit. Now we know who he's got. I will look into it.
Yeah, he fought Magmedov on Bellator 254 in the co-main event. He was out grappled over 3 rounds, which Brett Johns is very, very good at grappling. So that'll be interesting. I'm just excited to see. I'm a bit disappointed that it's not until May the 21st, but I'm very excited to see Brett make his Bellator debut. We talked. And when we talked to him, he said he's not interested in building himself up. He wants to go straight in and get some heads from the rankings.
Yeah, but he's touching in his 30s. Is he in his 30s?
No, he's not that quite. He's not that quite that old. I will check now. But Rhys, what do you think about Brett and his debut? Is going to Bellator, etc.
And as you said, I think it shocked the whole the MMA world. But props to him for doing what's best for him, his family, and his future. He again, I think it's another thing of he was able to brush his ego aside and realize what was best for him. So Brett's a great guy.
He's 29 years. Sorry.
Yeah, I just checked that myself. Yeah, I knew it was pretty close.
But it goes back to what we were saying earlier, Rhys. I do feel a bit like he was disrespected by UFC as well. He had come back from a long-term layoff. He was on a 3-fight, I think, or a 2-fight win streak. But the point being, he's only lost 2 fights in the UFC. And both of those fighters are in the top 3 of the division now. And it's like, I'm not really sure what more you want him to do. Like, he fought them when he was a lot younger. He's beaten everyone else you've put in his way. He's come back from a long layoff and beaten a very good wrestler in Gravely. Then he's beaten, I forget his name, very comfortably with him. And he's had some really nice finishes along the way as well. Some really interesting. I think he had he won a fight with a calf slicer. I don't know. I felt like he was a bit disrespected. Maybe that's because he's a friend. I don't know. But
I don't disagree. But he's going to get paid now. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's it, isn't it? It's about looking after your family and doing what's best for them. So can't fault him whatsoever. Danny, last bit of news I want to discuss before we dig into Rhys and ask him some questions, put him under pressure, so to speak. I want to ask you, Jake Hadley put a tweet up yesterday or the day before, and it simply said, "Thanks for the belts." And that's it. To me, that says, "Thanks for the belts, I'm off." And I wouldn't be surprised to see him go to the UFC whatsoever. But what do you make of that tweet, Danny? Do you think that could be a sign he's on his way?
Yeah, it seems.
Actually, sorry, to clarify, it wasn't just thanks for the belts. He said, "Thanks for the belts, catch you later."
Yeah, I mean, clearly that seems that he's got some sort of news that he's going to be heading off somewhere. So.
Say again, sorry, Rhys, I didn't catch that then.
It could have been an April Fool's.
Was it?
Hey, you know what?
I'll have a look what the date is.
Was it?
It was on April the 1st. No, but it was a Happy Four, so it doesn't count. Happy Four doesn't count.
Not everybody plays by rules.
Yeah, that's it, mate. But
hope he is. I hope he will. Sorry to interrupt. I just thought it was an interesting dynamic.
He's got two belts that he's holding on to. So what he deserves to move on.
Absolutely deserves it. And let's be honest, mate, there isn't a flyweight in anywhere outside of UFC which could maybe Luke, mate. I think is probably the only one which I think has got any chance. And unfortunately, I know he's obviously a former student of yours. Like the way the first fight went, Luke's probably going to have to beat someone else first before he gets that rematch. And,
it would make sense for him to have to do that.
You know, and look, I would like to see Luke get that shot at a rematch again. I like Luke a lot. But Jake was so dominant, and Luke made some errors, made it a bit emotional and a bit personal, and made some errors. But for me, similar to Paddy Pimblett, Jake Hadley should probably be in the UFC. And boy, there's some flyweights for him to battle there. I'm so excited because I look at these UK guys going across. We're going to talk about Jack Shaw in a minute or in a bit. We've got Jack in the bantamweight division. You've got Jake Hadley maybe going into that flyweight division. You've got Paddy going into the lightweight division. You've got Modestas already there. You've got Leon Edwards. The Darren Till's fighting, I think, next week as well. I think Darren Till's actually the main event. So there's a whole host of UK fighters just coming up into the UFC now, which is exciting stuff. Right then, Rhys, let's ask you some questions and focus on you a bit. Let's start at the start, I suppose. How did you get into MMA, first of all?
Kind of boring story. I was playing football and it was pre-season fitness. I just needed something to do while football was off. And me and my brother went to an MMA gym, and as I think everybody finds out at the time, you realize you can't fight. So that I suppose it scared me a bit, and it was addictive, and so that's it. And here we are, I think near 10 years later, almost 10 years. So been crazy.
So with that, were you good at football?
No, I wasn't great at football at all. So considering how bad I was at MMA at the start, like it shows you how bad I was at football that I was able to swap. I'd done a lot of sitting on the bench waiting to come on, and but okay, it was good. It was good times.
Does your brother still do MMA now?
No, he doesn't.
No?
I think sometimes he maybe kicks himself that he, when he sees what I've done in my career and stuff, maybe he wonders what. But he had a different life. He has kids and a wife, and he's happy in different ways.
What are your plans now? Obviously, you were in Cage Warriors. You've gone to UFC. What's the aims long term for you? Would you like to get back to the UFC and make a point? Or? Yeah,
for sure. If I didn't want to get back to the UFC, we wouldn't be doing this interview. I'd be totally finished. But I do. I know I haven't shown anything near what I can do. So at the minute, I'm on a development kind of stage in my career where, I want to fight soon. I really do. But more of all, I want to improve. The way I acted in the Morano fight showed an immaturity on my skill set, and I wasn't able to reassess during the fight and stuff. So I have a lot of work to do, and I know by the time I get back to the UFC, I'll be a whole different beast. And I think right now I'm seeing the long game, although it maybe sounds weird that I'm taking a backward step.
What in terms of your next fight? Have you got sort of anything in the pipeline at the moment, or is it a bit of more of a waiting game? I know maybe you can't say, I've got a fight with this person, but
no, it's not about that. It's obviously I'm managed by Graham Boylan, and I had a great career with Cage Warriors, so I can imagine when I do fight, it'll be with Cage Warriors again. I want to go straight back to the UFC. I'm not looking for these money fights and stuff like that to go get paid. And I still see the UFC as my career. So I can't imagine it will be with Cage Warriors. If it's in June, I'm not too sure, or towards the end of the year, I'm not really sure. But I can imagine it'll be Cage Warriors. I can't see where else I'd fight.
Yeah, and you mentioned your next gen in Northern Ireland. How did was that the gym that you went to when you first went there as a kid, or have you kind of progressed to there?
Yeah, I grew up in that gym since I was 16. Done the beginner program, moved to the adult class at the time when I was a kid. started sparring all the guys, and I've been there since day one, and it's amazing.
Who's the coaches then at Next Gen Northern Ireland?
Yeah, so at the start there was a few coaches, but now at the start there was a few more. Now Rodney Moore is kind of the head coach of us guys. And like Rodney's an OG of the MMA scene, and a great coach and bags of experience. So yeah, Rodney runs the roost in Northern Ireland.
Mm. Is any young fighters that we should or up and coming fighters in your gym that we should keep an eye out for over the next year or so?
Yeah, there's a few. There's a lot of beasts in that gym. Like two of my main sparring partners for my last fight were guys that haven't actually competed in MMA yet, but they were like boxers and kickboxers, but they're now transitioning. So there's a young guy, Bradley Rice, and a young guy, Corey. These two guys are going to be beasts. Again, they haven't had any MMA experience, but for 8 weeks, they beat me up. Beast.
And the name Skeletor, I'm always curious how people pick up these nicknames. What do you do? Collect bones or something? How did this one come about?
So when I started MMA, I fought at 57 kilos, so I was flyweight, and then I moved up to 61. But when I made 61, I was only probably walking about at 65 kilo. But when I made 61, I was so skinny because I've always been tall. I just got the nickname Skeletor, and it's always stuck. So even now, as I'm moving up the weight groups, when I stand on the scale, I always look like a Skeletor. So
I was going to say, how tall are you? Because you must be quite tall for a flyweight.
I'm 6'3". Although back then, obviously, I was, I must have been probably 5'11" or 5'10", 5'11". Yeah. I'm not sure, but I'm 6'3" now on a Monday.
What's your dream fight, Rhys? If you could, pick your first main event that you'd fight in the UFC, doesn't have to, past, present, or future fighter, who would you like to go up against?
Well, I always like to pick kind of current, because for me it's kind of real. Dream fight would have to be Usman because he's the champ, as much as I think he's class. If you want a more entertaining answer, then I'd probably say Nick Diaz because I just think he's the best thing since sliced bread. So I'd like to say him.
So does that mean you'd like to see the McGregor-Diaz trilogy fight at some point? Yeah,
I think yes and no. No, because I'm kind of bored of the whole storyline. But yes, because who doesn't want to? Anybody McGregor fights will be a massive fight. So the fact that Diaz can stick it there with him, 100%.
Danny, was there anything else you wanted to put to Rhys before I ask him some really weird and pointless questions, like I always do?
Well, I just want to say I'm really happy to hear that you're, looking not so much to take a step back, but to continue to grow your game, knowing that there's some areas that you feel you had to work on. I agree. I think some of your decision making in the last performance you had, it was actually really frustrating watching. I felt like you overtraded in the pocket when you can fight better long. I think you could have picked this guy apart at range. I think you have that striking critique and that particular style to beat Morono when you fought him. He just stayed in the pocket a step too long and overtraded. I think maybe to try to impress, I don't know. But I'm really glad that you're going back to scratch to try to get yourself some more skills in your game, try and teach yourself to make decisions in between rounds or actually in the round itself, which is really, really important in UFC. If you're doing something wrong, you need to be able to put something right again to stand a chance of pulling back the fight. Because you are just 25 years old. To me, you're full of potential. I don't think you're even at your physical peak yet, being just 25 years old. I think that more comes in your later 20s. So I'm glad you're sticking in there. How many fights do you anticipate to have before you go back into UFC? How many fights do you surmise it will take for you to put this skill sets to right and your strategies to rights to go back into UFC and then be effective?
Yeah, well, first of all, I totally agree with what you said. And I suppose what threw me off so much was we trained for Morono to come out and do what I done, to come out, crazy gunslinging, ready to fight. And when he didn't, he sat back and he done what I was meant to do. And,
right.
and I didn't have the experience to deal with that decision. So I just decided, right, well, I'm going to fight you. And and you'll have seen many experienced fighters in your day. Like, you can really feel the experience of some of these experienced guys. And like, I remember being there, looking at him, being like, he has my number here, like, because of his experience. He was just watching me miss. As for the how many fights do I think it takes, I do have it now. I have the skills to be in the, maybe not the skills, but like I have the foundations and the base work already done. The problem was, in the heat of the situation, I didn't do it. So I realistically only think 2 fights, 2 good fights. Look at Paddy. Paddy only won 2 fights and he was back in the UFC. I think 2 fights against strong level opponents, where I'm tested a bit of adversity, and just to show how much I've grown, and I'll be signed in a heartbeat. I was released on a development basis. I wasn't released and said, go have a nice career. It was like, just go tailor what you have. We want you back, but you just need a few wins, where Graham said, most people that are cut are told, go have a nice career and all the best. Yeah. So it takes something on that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think UFC is definitely where you're at. And I think, 2 fights, get 2 good performances in. I'm sure we'll be seeing you back there, and I'll be really excited to follow your progression and also your development with your skills, because you are just a young lad. Of course, you've got to pick up more skills. But like I say, I can't reiterate enough, you are still really young physically, so you will develop and become stronger. And obviously, being in MMA, the length of time it's going to be by the time you're going to go back into UFC, you would have matured somewhat as well in terms of your strategy thinking and your adjustments, on the job, so to speak. We're always going to be watching your career closely. I have watched your career closely ever since you fought one of our lads, Jefferson George. You knocked him down with a jab, and again you kept the game rangy, which is what I would have loved to have seen when you fought Morano, but it just wasn't looking to be.
I hated that fight with Jefferson, because Jefferson was one of them like real tricky guys, where like, I remember fight day being like, I don't know how he's going to come out, because sometimes he spins and sometimes I didn't like that fight a lot, but that's why I was kind of like, I play rangy when I have a tricky guy, and I'm not scared, but I'm very wary of what they're going to do, and I absolutely think that's kind of my best skill set. So but like, I know Cage Warriors are some interesting guys coming up through. I don't think they've signed them yet, but like, not to speak out of turn against Cage Warriors, but it needs to be the right fight for me, and it needs to be something to excite me. So I'm hoping to see who they bring in is going to be them guys, because I'm not. And this is another thing, and I'm going off on a bit of a tangent. I could go into Cage Warriors now and beat any 2 guys and get signed again, but there's no point in me doing that, because there's no development there. For me, I'm looking to develop, fight guys that are legit wins, and then go back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree with that. And if I could give any advice, if it's worth anything to you, what I would love to see, look, you're really tall at the weight, you're rangy. I would love, no matter who you fight up against, it's just trying to sit behind a jab at first and learn to assess what you're up against. You've already said before, you was expecting your opponent to do a certain something, and he didn't. He was trying to adjust and perhaps do something a bit different on the job. You always got to be prepared to change something on the job. And you do that by analysing who and what you're up against. And who and what you're up against isn't necessarily what they did in the past. It's always what they're going to be doing on the day. And so I think if I could see you sit behind your length and your range, which I think is where you're at your best, you're going to start assessing their intentions, and then you can adjust your game plan there. Even if it's just for a minute and a half, I think you've got the range to be able to figure someone out in that first round. A little bit like what Thai boxers do. They sort of go through the motions, don't they? And then they start picking up on what they've assessed in the second and third round. I think you have that physicality advantage over most people, where you can assess how you want to go about the fight by just sticking on the outside, getting ahead, staying ahead, and then making adjustments for there on out. But let's watch your career closely. I can't wait to see you get back on winning ways. I have no doubts in my mind that you're going to knock up another 2 or 3 wins and be heading back over to UFC. And this time around, being a more mature Rhys McKEee, a more experienced Rhys McKEee, and knock up the results in UFC where you belong.
Yeah, appreciate it, mate. Appreciate it.
100%, mate. Okay, a couple of quick questions, Rhys, and then we'll get your predictions for next week's UFC, and then we'll let you go. But first and foremost, what's your favourite entrance music to enter the cage to?
I like. I always use Post Malone. I always use Post Malone. I've been using it the last 8 or 9 fights anyway. So Post Malone is where it's at.
Any particular song, mate?
I used Congratulations for a long time. I even got it tattooed. But yeah, just kind of whatever I'm feeling, and the kind of 12 weeks prior.
Sweet. And also, who do you think will be the next British UFC champion if you were not allowed to pick Leon Edwards?
Well, I'm going to be controversial. I don't know if Leon Edwards would beat Usman, and I do want him to. I just think Usman's that good as well. But again, that's just me starting an argument. I think I actually think Arnold Allen could be the guy if he had the chance. But I think it will be the heavyweight. Is it Tom Aspinall?
Aspinall, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I would like to see him versus Ngannou. I got to be honest. That would be a fight and a half.
Take my money. I mean, obviously, what I love about Aspinall is, like, I heard him say something in an interview like, it's too soon for some of this stuff, and I think maybe similar to what I'm saying now, and so I'm gonna blow my own head up. But I like when I hear fighters that I'm not the best in the world. I'm not the best in Europe or wherever, and I think it's very, very real to hear a fighter say that. And Aspinall said he's not that level yet, and I think that'll stand by him for years.
Yeah, I don't think he's miles away, but there's work to be done. I guess, yeah. And let's have a look. What else could we see? There was one other question I was going to ask you, and I can't find it. Right, okay. Do you think Conor McGregor will beat Dustin Poirier in the trilogy fight?
Well, I meant to say McGregor, aren't I? But no, I think so. This is what I meant when I said earlier. I mean, in the first fight, McGregor done what he done. He outstruck him. Then in the second fight, Poirier outstruck McGregor. Where I think in the third fight we'll see Dustin wrestle. I think McGregor can only beat him in a striking match. I don't think he can out wrestle him. So I think Poirier has two options. Where McGregor, again, he's one of the greatest of all time. He is where he is. I'm not saying he's bad, but I think Poirier has two options where McGregor has one.
Yeah. Interesting. And then to finish us off now, we're going to do our predictions for next week's UFC. I don't know whether I've imagined it. I thought Darren Till was fighting next week.
He broke his collarbone.
Say again, sorry, mate.
He broke his collarbone, I believe. Yeah, he's out.
That's what it is then. Yeah. I thought he was fighting Vettori because I've talked to Richard about it last week. But Kevin Holland has stepped in. So he's broken his collarbone, has he? Oh, he hasn't had much luck behind Darren Till as well. We're talking about fighters having a bit of bad luck. He has had some bad luck. Okay. So some really, really interesting fights next week. Not going to go through all of them. Just going to pick a couple. But one to open the main card. Platinum Mike Perry faces Daniel Rodriguez in a welterweight bout. Who you got there, Rhys?
Yeah, it's an interesting fight. That's who Nicholas Dalby beat. I believe I'll go with Mike Perry, but it depends what Mike has he been training? Is he with his girlfriend?
Yeah, you never know. You never know with Mike Perry.
No.
It's a fight I would love. I'd love to fight Mike Perry, but I think I'll go with Mike Perry in the assumption that he's training and his pregnant girlfriend isn't in his corner.
Was it last week? Was it his last fight when he turned up and got gassed within 60 seconds? And I don't know if it was his last one or his one before, but there was a fight and he turned up with just his girlfriend in his corner.
It's just
fought for 60 seconds, looked like he had never fought before in terms of his fitness, and just blew out completely.
It's hard because he's really good and he's really high level, and you see him cracking the pads on a good day. And if he hits anybody, they're going to sleep. But I I think he needs to maybe get his life in check. And I'm not giving Mike a life lesson, but like, I mean, he doesn't.
It's a weird one though, isn't it? Because like he's got quite a big following as well, so he's quite well known for good or bad, and he's a very skilled fighter. He's got power, but for whatever reason, he can't seem to get everything in line to really push on in his fight career. Like for me, if he got everything in the right order and training right, eating right, everything was calm and outside of the cage, like he's a top 10 fighter, top 5 fighter in that division.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's trying to get it in order. Do you got the platinum one, Danny, or are you going with Daniel?
I'll go Rodriguez on this one, just because Mike Perry is just so unpredictable, and yeah, I do agree that he's skillful, but he doesn't fight behind his skills, if you know what I mean. He just wants to always get in a big fracas and turn it into a big mess fest.
That's in and out of the cage, mate, as well, that isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he doesn't strategize for me. And Rodriguez carries enough experience that if he plays his cards right, will work around, getting into a slugfest and do the martial art thing. You'll use skill sets alone and strategy to win against Mike Perry. Yeah, I just think if you're going to be smart against Mike Perry, you get the win. You can kind of like sit back and wait for him to present the opportunity to win against him, and I think Rodriguez will be smart enough man to do that.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Rodriguez as well. He's got a big height advantage, got a massive reach advantage, leg reach advantage. If he can stay out of the pocket, I think Rodriguez will pick up the win, either on decision or he'll just bust him up from a distance. But if Perry gets in that pocket, he's got the power.
It's
power to finish it, haven't he? So
yeah,
it kind of is what it is. My sleeper fight of the week, mate, is the women's fight. Is a strawweight bout between Nina Ansaroff and Mackenzie Dern, ranked. Ansaroff is ranked 5 and Mackenzie Dern ranked 11. This is my sleeper fight recommendation for the week. I think it's going to be a banger. Danny, you go first. Who you got in this one?
Mackenzie Dern. I find it hard to see it going. I just think she's going to do it. She's really impressed me with striking improvements, and on the ground, she's second to none. Really is. So I just think she's got more ways to win.
Yeah, she's 9-1. She's a little bit shorter. She's losing a bit in reach, but like you say, she's been very impressive. But Ansaroff is ranked 5 for a reason, and it'll be interesting. Who you got for that one, Rhys?
Yeah, I'm going Mackenzie Dern as well. I think as Danny says, she's always improving, she's always adding, and I don't think she'll be in too much trouble for some reason.
Just for the sake of competition, I'll go with Nina Ansaroff. Then we've got a middleweight bout between Sam Alvey and Julian Marquez, which is a very, very interesting bout because they are pretty well matched in skills, but Sam Alvey has got a big reach advantage of nearly 4 inches. Rhys, you can go first on this one. Who you got?
Yeah, Sam Alvey, he's been about the block, and as you said, he's a big guy. So I think I don't know as much about Julian Marquez. I'm not as researched as much, but
won 75% of his fights via TKO or KO. He's got a record of 8-2. So
didn't he come through the contender?
I think he did, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Sam Alvey off experience, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went either way.
What about you, Dan?
Yeah, this is a tricky one because you say about them being well matched, but the big discrepancy in them is obviously the reach advantage one that you mentioned, and the experience difference. Can Sam use that experience and Marquez trip up, with the occasion? I'm going to go Marquez, but I'm really not sure how this one's going to go down. But yeah. We shall see.
Yeah, so Marquez won. He won a fight night versus Stewart via submission. Then he lost to Chirico on the Ultimate Fighter finale via a decision, and then he lost. He won against Pitolo via submission on UFC 258. So a bit of a mixed bag, but yeah, I'm gonna. Who did you say, Dan? You went with.
I'm gonna go Marquez. As long as he's put the wrongs right that he had when he got those losses, he's definitely shown a lot of potential. And he might have a little bit too much spark for Alvi. Alvi's lying the tooth in this sport, and I don't know. Yeah. He's maybe a bit sleepy as he comes out. I don't know. He's got to make that range count very, very early on, and it's sort of like got to get to work. But sometimes you've got to wonder what their motivations are, being in there for so many fights like he has. And I don't know whether Marquez will be too much of a firecracker for him.
He's got well over 30 fights, Sam Alvey. That's a lot of miles on the clock.
Yeah.
We have a middleweight bout between Kyle Dukas and Alexiab Kryazev. Let's say we'll go with that. Kryazev versus Kyle Dukas at middleweight. That could be a real good fight.
How do you pick between these two?
Well,
Dukas so good.
Kryazev's only 1-0, which is interesting. Fairly inexperienced in the UFC, but if I remember off the top of my head, and I am good off the top of my head, his one was an impressive one. But Kyle Dukas is 9-1, pretty experienced now. Be interesting. I can't remember who went first. Danny, I think it's your turn to go first.
Yeah, I'm going to go for that Kryazev.
Yeah,
I'm just going to go him because he's unbeaten. And but them two, it's going to be really hard to pick between them. And but yeah, he's unbeaten. Let's go with him.
The unknown.
Yeah.
What about you, Rhys?
Yeah, well, I'm going to split the pot this time. Then, and I'm going to go the Sakis. I'm going to split the pot.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go. I think I'm going to go with Kryazev. I think I'll go with just because I think he's the unknown. The fight I'm really looking forward to is the co-main event featherweight bout between friend of the show, recent guest Arnold Allen versus Sodiq Yusuff, ranked 11 versus ranked 10. This could be. This one could steal the show, I think.
Yeah.
Rhys, you get to go first this time, mate. I'm going with Arnold Allen, absolutely. But
super high level. Like, it's one of them fights. Like a loss is it's not gonna put each other back too much, but you kind of don't want to see them lose because they could both be there at the top. This could be of the quality of a title fight, but Arnold Allen's so good, so. I'm definitely going with Arnold Allen on this one.
Yeah, I would like to see a nice, impressive performance from Arnold because it feels like forever since he fought. Let me just check, actually. But it's really looking forward to seeing him go. He's itching from what he said to me and Danny when he was a guest. So, yeah, he hasn't fought since January last year when he beat Lentz on the decision. So, Danny, you going with Arnold Allen in this one, or do you see his opponent?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't
giving him a trouble.
Yeah, I'm going to go Arnold Allen. Although Yusuff, he's good, man. Very, very good. But, from the conversation we have with Arnold Allen, I feel like he's doing all the right things within his training. Seems pretty damn intelligent, smart guy, and so unassuming as well. So laid back and can't really surprise me about how he was. But yeah, he impressed
some impressive training partners as well, haven't he?
Yeah, exactly. So that time that he's had off from fighting has been put into advancing his skill set. He's talking about the talent pool of people that he's training with, and I just think we're going to see a better Arnold Allen than we've ever seen before, and he's already done absolutely fantastic. I just think he's going to continue on that sort of path of success. And I think he's going to notch up the win against Yusuff. I think he'll end up tiring Yusuff out. I think it's going to be very technical. It's going to be explosive. But I think Arnold Allen's got to be the one that will continue to push through and get it to the finish line. And I just think Youssef will end up beginning to foul in that third round.
Interesting, mate. Interesting. So fresh off his loss to Derek Brunson, Kevin Holland has stepped in for the main event. He stepped in for Darren Taylor's broken collarbone, as we discussed, to face Marvin Vettori, the Italian Dream, ranked 6 versus ranked 4 in the main event. Danny, who is going to win this?
I'm going to go Vettori. He really impressed me the last time that he fought. Really did impress me. And Kevin Holland just left me baffled in his last performance. It was bizarre. Yeah,
That's
I love
a nice
Kevin
way
Holland.
to put it.
Yeah, I love the guy to bits. I think it's so great when they bring their personalities into the match. But that was too far. That was too much. That was baffling, absolutely baffling to me. Has anyone heard an interview or anything about? Has he answered any questions about what his performance was all about?
I haven't seen anything, mate. I've got to be honest.
I mean, clearly he's a bit of a strange chap anyway. But that was just absolutely nuts. And if you do that with someone like Vettori, he's going to come at you with punches. He's going to knock you the hell out. So I don't know. Kevin Holland, if he plays it smart, he could play on the outside of Vettori and get Vettori missing a lot. And then he's got the power to break Vettori down. But I just don't think Kevin Holland's got a state of mind to strategize. So yeah. I'm going to have to go Vettori on him.
Yes, indeed, mate. What about you, Rhys?
Kevin Holland is the guy, in my opinion, he doesn't look as good as he probably is. The fact that he beat Jacare, is ridiculous. In my opinion, he had no business beating Jacare. He had no business fighting him. So I think this might be the one he wins. The ones he's kind of not meant to win on the short notice. I think I'm going to go with Kevin Holland. But as for how he acted in his last fight, that stuff is only funny and on purpose when you're winning. It's not funny when you're losing.
Totally agree.
I find it so strange that's how he acted while he was losing a fight.
Yes, indeed. I'm going to go with Vettori as well. Holland's too temperamental for me in terms of you just don't know which version of him is going to turn up. I feel like Marvin Vettori is not a fighter where you can have any doubt in terms of what version of you is going to turn up, because he will take you apart. Just for me. But it's all about opinions. Rhys, thank you so much for joining us, mate. Really, really enjoyed chatting to you. And you are welcome back anytime, mate. Maybe when you've got some fight news, you can shoot me a text and you can come on and we can have a chat about that and stuff. But thank you very much for joining us, mate. Really appreciate it. I'll link Rhys's social media accounts and everything in the description below. But Danny, another top guest.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. Again, you're another chap that I've seen on the circuit a lot, but you're nearly always getting ready to fight yourself. So I've never come over and introduced myself or anything. I'll leave you to it. But just when you get your next couple of wins, just give me a little mention and say, I got these wins because of the advice Danny gave me on a podcast. And I really appreciate that.
Right. Well, I'm sure I'll see you on the circuit soon anyway.
Yeah. No, but good luck, Rhys. We're watching your career really close, and I'm sure you've got bigger and better things going to be coming your way in time.
Appreciate it, mate. Thank you so much.
Top man. Cheers, Rhys.
Nice one.
Indeed, mate. Another top guest.
Yes.
Love it. I love it. So we'll be back next week with another guest. I would imagine. I haven't actually booked one yet, but we will have one. I've got no doubt. We got plenty penciled in and ready to go.
Yeah.
Mate, no UFC last night. Let's have a little chat about Bellator 255, the main card. We won't go massive into it. We'll just go fight by fight. The problem I've got is, unlike the UFC, I had trouble finding a round by round sort of breakdown of the fights to bring up. But there was one prelim fight I just wanted to make a quick mention of, and that was Makhmedov defeated CJ Hamilton via submission, rear naked choke, about a minute and a half of the second round. Makhmedov again looking real good. Really enjoyed that one. It was only a short one, but he's a fighter which is very, very talented. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes next. A little bit surprised to see him on the pre-show, actually. I got to be honest.
Yeah. But he did look absolutely devastating, didn't he? God, Jesus. But Hamilton made a good little display of himself in that. In that first round.
Yeah.
He was doing good, but I think he was having to be so physical, defending the technical and physical onslaught of Makhmedov. And Hamilton did some good things, but I think when he began to falter, and then Makhmedov began to take over and get control, he just looked unstoppable, really. And you started to realise that there's actually, a couple of belts difference in level, where it really mattered. But Hamilton did good things. I feel like he's got some potential, this lad. But
even towards the end of that first round, when he had the hooks in on the back and he was pummeling the back of his head, he just looked like different levels, didn't they? And then the end of the fight came once he got him in position, that flying knee. So he hits it. Makhmedov hits him with a flying knee, and it doesn't rock him, but it just set him up nicely to move him to where he wanted. And it wasn't too long before he was done. I was impressed. I know you love the grappling, mate. Were you impressed with how quickly Makhmedov went from sort of pummeling him, turning him round and into the rear naked choke?
Yeah, he was really, really impressive. What can you say? He just looked so clinical. He knew where he wanted to be and how to get there, and he got there with no real issues, to be honest. Like I say, Hamilton physically was able to defend a little bit in the first round, and was kind of just having to be forceful to get out of certain difficult situations. But Makhmedov was acting like he was more experienced beyond his
didn't look worried at all, did he?
No, and he just knew it was a matter of time, and he didn't rush anything. But likewise, although he didn't rush, he was always working towards that win, constantly. And just very, very impressive.
You don't often see when he puts the rear naked choke on him standing up, and they fall. He falls forward and then taps out. You don't see that very often, really, do you? What's the reason why you don't see that often? Is it just purely because 9 times out of 10 it gets put on, when you take the back on the floor, or?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time people's wrestling, they're sort of like close enough levels where you end up facing each other a lot, and you normally get the back on the grounded situation through throwing ground and pound or trying to get back to your feet. People quite often give their back up to try to get to the fence. Sometimes they muck up that timing and they get their back taken, so you get the belly down submissions and stuff. But with regards to being set up on the feet, if there's a big wrestling difference between two individuals, you're going to get round the back more often, and it's going to showcase itself every now and then. But there was a difference in level between them both. You could see that.
Absolutely. Funny enough, I've just noticed on one of these websites, where I was looking at some of the fights, that one wrestling have one MMA or whatever, one championship have a show, because it looks like Eddie Alvarez and Demetrius Johnson fought. Yeah,
that's right. I didn't get time to watch those.
No, I haven't seen them. I didn't realize, and I would have watched them, because of their names. But I just having a look. Eddie Alvarez was taken to hospital by he was airlifted to hospital. Right. He submitted Edward Fowlong. I'm reading this now. I haven't seen the fight. In a comeback win. So basically, Eddie Alvarez survived a huge early onslaught from his opponent. But eventually tapped the Filipino out with a rear naked choke.
But he's a devastating striker, isn't he?
And then Eddie Alvarez was airlifted to hospital by all accounts.
Wow.
That's hopefully we wish him well, and hopefully he's okay. When you're up against these crazy strikers, you take some. Eddie Alvarez has always taken a lot of damage as well. He has been in wars, strikers, and he's been in wars over the years. Demetrius Johnson fought Tatsumi Wada I haven't seen the result yet. I'm about to read about it, but I'm going to say that Demetrius Johnson won. Let's see. But yeah, in future, I'll keep a bit more of an eye on, the One Championship, because they have got some big fighters in there, just so we can keep an eye out for when they have a big card. It doesn't look like maybe that was an old fight. I don't know. I can't find it. But hopefully Eddie Alvarez is okay. I mean, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the issue was with it. So Demetrius Johnson has got a fight coming up against Adriano Morales, by the looks of it, on April the 7th, which is next week. So there you go. We'll keep an eye out for that for next week. So next fight on the Bellator card was Kana Watanabe versus Alejandra Lara, which was a split decision with Kana Watanabe picking up the victory. Did you see this one?
I'm just checking to see if this jogs my memory, because this might have been the only one. This one I did not see.
Yeah, it's the same as me. I didn't see this one, but by the report, it seems like it was a pretty decent fight. Like they did have a quite close fight. Watanabe picking up the victory via split decision, 28-29, 29-28, 29-28. It's very, very close. Then we get Usman Nurmagomedov defeating Mike Hamill via unanimous decision, 29-28, 30-27, 30-27. What did you make of Usman's performance? I think this was his debut, maybe, in Bellator.
Yeah. It was okay. It wasn't perfect by any stretch. His guard is a little bit long. Doesn't have devastating striking hands, but one thing that he did do was throw a lot of shots, and he did have some nice kicks on him. When I say nice kicks, I don't mean like devastating leg kicks or body kicks or anything, but they were quick, they were rangy, and they were problematic because he was the taller guy. And yeah, he just won on work rate, really. He was just, hacking the leg, hacking the body, going to head a lot. He just had really, really good cardio. He was the longer, taller guy. And Hamill had to work in close all the time. Hamill had his opportunities. He actually looked pretty good in the wrestling exchanges when it happened. But yeah, Usman was just a little bit too much for him. I think it was the physical differences. Hamill just didn't have the skill set and the tool set to be able to push close, which is what he needed, giving away a lot of height and reach like he was. He needed to get into those bombs dropping. Now he was throwing the bombs, but they were glazing Usman, and they was just not being consequential enough. And to push through into that pocket, he was receiving a lot of shots himself, started getting bloodied up. I just feel like Hamill, if he wanted to make the fight change in his favour, he would have needed to shoot in more early on in the rounds and try and present an opportunity to take it to the ground. But yeah, he spent too long trying to find his way into the pocket with the striking, which probably affected his gas tank somewhat because he had to work harder out of the two men to try to get his scoring shots off. So when he did shoot in, he did look good, but I think he done it a little bit too late in the rounds and was leaving him a little bit short on energy to keep the control enough to take away the judges' attention from all the striking that landed from Usman. But a good fight to watch, though. I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, Khabib's cousin, obviously, apparently I read that there was literally an army of Nurmagomedovs at this show. They all went out there, which is it's great to see. They're supporting Khabib's cousin. But I thought he did all right for his debut. I thought there was a bit of nerves there. Maybe it's obviously a big fight for him, his first fight in Bellator after signing the deal. But there's enough to him, isn't there? You saw enough that he's gonna progress and he's gonna get better with experience.
Sure.
Next up was Tyrell Fortune versus Jack May, with Tyrell Fortune picking up the victory via TKO strikes in round one. Not much to this one particularly, mate.
Jack May, a massive towering man of 6'8", but did not have anything near the skill set to make any of that height count. He was closed down very, very quickly, taken down very, very quickly, and looked largely lost on the ground. It was not a good performance by him. Sorry?
I just thought he looked lost on the ground, mate.
he did look lost. Yeah, it was not a good performance on his behalf, but this is not Fortune's fault. Fortune performed very good and performed as to be expected against that sort of caliber of guy from what I witnessed. I mean, he wasn't a particularly high caliber. So, yeah, he did good. It's hard to take anything from that fight, really, that it was so one-sided.
It was very one-sided. He's a big boy, isn't he? What's his name? Fortune. Big man. Next up was Jason Jackson defeating Naaman Gracie by unanimous decision, 29-28 across the boards. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, I enjoyed watching this fight. When I watched this fight, though, I do think to myself, can I imagine any of these guys up against anyone in the top 15 in UFC? Yeah. And I think both of them have come up woefully short. They're probably fighting at the level you would expect in sort of like on the outer fringes of 25 rank in UFC, to be honest. I think Gracie was really convinced that he'd won it, but he'd done some really sloppy things. That some of the takedowns ended up putting himself on his back. It just had no concept of how to wrestle and maintain control. Bearing in mind, you expect the Gracie name to really understand how to control on the ground, but to get control on the ground, you have to get it there with the potential controls in place as you do the takedown. He was trying to drag his opponent down at times and sort of dragged him on top of himself at times. And I think that's where the losses come, because I think overall on the punch and strike tally, I think he may have been ahead. But it just wasn't a great performance from either of them. But in turn, that made it quite an entertaining match. But I really don't know what else to say about it, really. Both of them have a lot of things to work on throughout the whole of their skill set. They were striking okay. The wrestling was really not great, but similarly matched. They both had the opportunities of being on top of each other. The grappling exchanges, like I say, you would have thought the Gracie would have showed a lot more superiority than he did in the first round. He had Jackson's back with a rear naked choke, and it looked an utter lost position, but he tried to do what jiu-jitsu guys do, and that's only work for the choke. Now, he had 3 minutes 40 on the clock when he had the back. He should have just gone on an absolute onslaught with punches. The ref would have to have stopped it because there's no real way out when you've been sprawled. It's so difficult to get out from. The guy clearly couldn't get out of the position because he was stuck there for quite a long period. All the Gracie had to do was throw strikes there, but no, he was faffling around for the rear naked choke. Even throwing strikes in that position to help get the choke to present itself would have been good, but he didn't throw no strikes there. Absolutely ludicrous and hugely inexperienced approach to that sort of dominance positionally in the first round. It was, that was not good to see. So, I mean, it sounds like I'm talking trash about them both, but I just wasn't impressed at all. I just wasn't.
Like, the weird thing for me, mate, I got to be honest, is like you'd expect Naaman Gracie to be a certain level. He's 32. He's a very experienced fighter, and he's fighting in Bellator. So, like, I'm expecting him to be like much better than his opponent in the grappling and be a certain level. And I just felt like he wasn't that good. Like, look, I know I'm not trained. I'm not a fighter. I'm not saying that, but just watching the fight, I just felt like it was an entertaining fight, but I just didn't think it was a good fight, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, look, he's a Gracie. The Jackson, who he fought, is not an accomplished grappler by any stretch. He's an MMAist in terms of his striking, his wrestling, and his ground, but not at the highest level in any one of those ranges. Clearly, he wasn't as good as the Gracie on the ground, but Gracie had mount position. He had mount position, got turned over. I mean, that's really poor from any grappling perspective, especially being turned over by someone that's not exactly hugely talented on the ground or not a super accomplished wrestler. I mean, it was a pretty poor showing. I expected more from the Gracie. Now, the only thing I could be thinking of and why he wasn't throwing strikes in that top position was because he had Renzo Gracie in his corner. Maybe he was trying to, put a display of submissions on and trying to keep it to the Gracie tradition of, looking good on the ground in terms of putting people away with the submissions. But this is an MMA event. You get an opportunity to be on top. You've got to throw some damage before you go hunting for submissions, unless you're running out of time. You've got to put the fight away because you're so far behind. He wasn't. He was winning this first round convincingly from 3 minutes 40 remaining on the clock. Has plenty of time for him to put it away. But from 3 minutes 40, where he was in a total win-win position, 1 minute 50 of the first round, he was suddenly on his back. I mean, that's just massively inexperienced at this level, and there's no real excuses. I would, if I was in his corner, I'd be going nuts. I would not be a happy bunny.
Yeah, not pleased. The main event: Patricio Pitbull defeated Emmanuel Sanchez via a submission guillotine choke, around 3 minutes 35 into the first round. What did you make of the main event, my friend?
Yeah, Pitbull just gets it done. He's just got so much power in his hands. Look, he's really quite small as well. He's not very tall. No, he's not big at all, but clearly got a lot of power in his hands. He's a little bit like Chandler in many ways. Now, he's got some wrestling capabilities, so he can kind of go in full bore with his hands, and boy, does he. Sanchez was doing the right type of things. He was trying to play long, trying to sit behind his kicks and rangy hands, and trying to get over zealous. But Pitbull's timing is just good. He just senses death and blood, and yeah, he tagged him. I think it was with a counter left hook. So sometimes he doesn't have to play pure hunter. He sort of just squeezes into his opponent, slowly waits for one error. Then he's all guns ablaze with that hook. He lands it on the chin. He gets into ground situation. They briefly come up to feet and jumps in that really devastating arming guillotine. Now, I don't know whether anyone else saw this. I spotted it. He did tap as it touched the ground with the near side arm, but the ref couldn't see it and went very, very quickly asleep. And he was asleep for some time before the ref finally intervened with a few arm tugs, which I know referees tell you before you go out that that's what they would do in case of a choke situation. He tried to get a response back on the arm and didn't, but he had already been asleep for a good number of seconds. Quite a dangerous situation potentially there.
The referee's got to do better, do you think, there?
They need to get themselves into position better. But, you know, someone...
I know it's easy for me to say that, but, like, when you're in charge of, you know, fighter safety and making sure that when they tap, they're not going to sleep and stuff like that, I do feel like, look, let's be honest, maybe he should have done a bit better.
Yeah, I do think the ref was just on the wrong side and then missed the free arm.
That's part of it, isn't it? That's part of being in the right position.
Yeah, you have. You've got to locate yourself. You kind of got to be one step ahead of what the fighters are intending to do a little bit. But being that close into the fight, what you can get a good sense. I mean, I've done a lot of refereeing over the years, and you know, sometimes they do the unexpected and they nearly come into you and what have you, or it goes to the ground and you're on the wrong side, you have to run round. But that ref didn't make the changes that I felt he should have made to get himself in optimum position to see what was a tap out to me. But he missed it, and it could have been really nasty. I mean, Pitbull, fair play. He was like, look, the guy's unconscious. The guy was trying to help the ref make his decisions. But it is what it is. Look, there was no harm done in the end, thankfully. But Pitbull just gets it done. It's really, really good. If I want to see anyone come over to UFC, it's him.
Yeah, I think I've said before, I'm not a massive fan of the Pitbull brothers, but Patricio is my sort of preferred one, if you like. I really admire his skills, particularly his striking. I just think, but he's very, very talented fighter, no doubt. And it was all right. It was a fun show. Pretty much enjoyed most of the fights that I watched. Obviously, like I said, they were so badly promoted, this show, that we didn't even know it was on until Saturday morning. So, you know, the day after. It's a shame.
I mean, I always saw UFC as being the number one and Bellator a closely contested number two. And I think that Bjorn was the person that was running the event back when I was getting involved with James Thompson going over there. And I thought it was a pretty well run event. I was really surprised when Bjorn was stepping to one side, Scott Coker was taking over. Scott Coker come from Strikeforce. And Strikeforce was a bloody good event. I used to really enjoy it. And to me, in my mind, I saw that as sort of like number 3 rank, in terms of interest of viewing matchups and what have you. But yeah, I don't know what he's doing. I just don't. I just what's the business model idea behind what he's doing with Bellator? I have no idea, and not pushing it and advertising it. I mean, I didn't even know there's a Bellator until you messaged me saying, "Hey, do you want to check out Bellator? We ain't got no UFC to watch." I didn't even know it was on. It's bizarre.
It's bizarre. It is really bizarre, mate. And I think my problem with it is, like, the BBC deal for Bellator could be a massive thing. Like, I really think that's something they should be pushing and plastering everywhere, to have MMA on terrestrial TV live. Because one of the problems with Bellator has been that you couldn't always get the shows live in the UK.
Right.
Like, Channel 5 would show them, but they show them like a couple of days later or a week later.
Yeah.
So you couldn't watch live without illegal streaming and things like this. So, like, to have it on terrestrial TV and then no one know about it because they haven't advertised it is criminal. And Rhys was saying just before we went live that they've released a few UK fighters this week, and like there's rumors that they're going to get rid of the whole European division. Like, that, in my opinion, that will be a massive mistake, and I actually believe that could be a catastrophic mistake for Bellator as a company, particularly in terms of their UFC, their UK fan base, or what they're trying to build as a UK fan base, because they've got some good UK fighters within their ranks. Obviously, they've signed Brett Johns recently. Like, the last thing you want to do is start getting rid of these guys as you start to get a little bit of momentum.
It makes you wonder what's going on, and do you know what? It kind of paints the picture for me that they might be in some financial difficulties, and you're obviously bringing in European fighters stateside is going to cost more money. You've got to wonder whether it's something to do with that. But they're going to be shrinking, and
lockdowns.
Yeah, you've got to invest to sort of create bigger opportunities to create growth. You've got to invest and reinvest, but cutting back your costs and making things smaller is not. It's just not the way it should be done, right? Like I said, I don't know. Maybe someone could give us more answers that are more in the know. But I'm not being impressed. For a number of years with Bellator.
Yeah. One thing I will say, mate, is if they are getting rid of that European division, Graham Boylan will be rubbing his hands together, because some of that European talent in that Bellator division is phenomenal. You've only got to look at some of the Welsh boys in there, like Lewis Long and Brett Johns. Like, Jesus, Cage Warriors would love those guys, never mind some of the Italian. They got a couple of good Italians in there. They got some English guys who are doing really well. It's worrying, because I agree. It does seem a bit like, right? Is there some sort of financial issue to it? Is because during lockdown and the pandemic, the Bellator European division is the only shows they've been putting really on. Like, there's been a couple of others, but like, the European division is what's been keeping them going. So, to suddenly be rumours of them getting rid of it is a concern. I would say.
Actually, I agree. It's concerning.
And funny enough, I was only thinking the other day, Lewis Long hasn't had a fight for ages. He seems ready. Why haven't they given him a fight? And then I hear that, and I start thinking, oh, Jesus, I hope they're not getting rid of that division, the European side of it. But maybe.
And if they do,
UFC would probably fancy a couple of those fighters as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll snap them up. If they see any potential in any of them, they'll be getting snapped up straight away. But it makes me wonder, would we see a return of Bama? Because Bama kind of got caught up because Bellator come over to Europe, didn't it?
Yeah.
So would Bama come back in? I don't know, because Bama used to put on some fantastic matches.
Yeah, they did. I just realised, I just watching them. They did a face-off after the main event between A.C.E McKee and Patricio Pitbull. Right. Like, A.C.E McKee is massive compared to him.
Yeah, he's really tall.
Like, really, really tall. He even looks quite wide compared to Pitbull. But Pitbull's been, he's been dominant in Bellator for a while. So it'd be certainly going to be interesting, mate. I'll tell you that much. But UFC next week, mate. We'll sort out a guest as well, whether it's a coach or a fighter or a media person. We'll have someone. It's going to be fun. Big thank you as ever to our guest, Rhys McKEee, this week. I was really looking forward to tonight's show with Rhys, and obviously it coincided with your return to the show after you left us for a week, only a week in the end. But Richard did a tremendous job actually standing in for you, and a big thank you to Richard for that, because obviously if he didn't stand in, then there's no show. So I appreciate that massively. Richard stepped in a couple of times now for you. Does a good job. But we'll be back next week. We released some merchandise this week on A.C.E Podcast Nation, and which also includes a couple of Danny Batten Fight Show items. You can check them out. Links in the description below, as well as scrolling across the bottom of the screen now if you'd like to have a little look and support the channel. We get a little cut of that. We don't have any involvement in the shipping. It's the Teespring does everything, so you contact them for that sort of stuff. But obviously, we'll help as much as possible. It's just another way that you can support the show and the channel. But yes, subscribe, youtube.com/A.C.E Podcast Nation. Obviously, the audio versions are everywhere, Spotify, Stitcher, etc. Real push at the moment, trying to get social media followers up a little bit. They all go up slowly, but we'd like to have a nice push. So give us a follow, A.C.E Podcast Nation, and of course, if you want just the Danny Batten Show, it's at Danny Batten FS on Instagram and Twitter. Danny, as ever, it's a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you as well, Si. It's been another pleasurable weekend, and so nice to be back to our old routine.
Indeed, mate. Indeed. We'll be back next week. Be good. Stay safe.
Defending champion, welcome, Danny Batten.
You win.
You're listening to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the hottest new podcast network and YouTube channel in the UK, featuring original series, top guests, expert analysts, and more. Check out facebook.com/AceCast Nation for news on latest guests and shows. Watch every show in full at youtube.com/ACE Podcast Nation.